Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Trustcast Show. And I'm really happy to have with us today Angela Ventro. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Thank you, Zane. Happy to be here.
So, Angela has kind of an interesting background. So, she's currently working for a company that that does AI things for law firms, and we're going to get into what AI things means. But I think the interesting part is Angela was an attorney, and we were just talking just before the show, and she was talking to me about getting her JD and then going off and studying for the bar and taking the bar. So go ahead and tell me a little story that you started off with there because I think that's fun.
Sure. So right out of law school, I started working in a small plaintiff's personal injury firm. And while I was studying for the bar, I continued to work there as a law clerk, legal assistant, office manager, paralegal, all of the things. And I took the bar in February of that following year after starting the firm. I actually failed the bar exam by 1 point. So, 1 point. Are you kidding me? Come on. So I had to appeal, of course, and I won my appeal. So not only did I pass the bar, but I won my first case and my first client was me. So I I really love that was my start as a lawyer. Because if you can't fight for yourself, then how can you fight for anybody else, right?
Yeah, I like that story too. So, so you went, but you went straight into working, out of law school and to working for this PI firm. And tell
Yes.
me a little bit about that and how long were you there?
So I worked there for about 4 years and we were a very, very busy firm. So we handled mostly workers' compensation and motor vehicle accidents. But to be truly successful as a workers' compensation firm, I know any workers' comp lawyers that are listening right now will understand this. You have to be able to do volume and do it efficiently. And so that meant, of course, that I was responsible for over 100 active files myself by the time I was actually an associate.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun, and that was still when things were so largely manual. Um, the files were still largely paper. And we thought at that time that we were kind of ahead of the curve in trying to make things paperless, but cut to 12 years later, and I'm looking back at those manual processes going, wow.
So tell me, how did you end up in a complete shift? Because
Mhm.
there's got to be a good story here.
Mhm.
From getting to law school, and now you are representing this firm and out calling on lawyers and helping them to understand how they can put some automation um, into their firm. So I'm just curious. So as a parent,
Hmm.
um, uh, um, so that what was your mother's reaction when you said, you know what, mom, I've decided I really like being a lawyer, but I think I can do better doing this other thing. And how did that go?
It's probably better if I tell you what my dad said. Uh,
Okay.
because my mom, even pre law school, was sort of like, "Are you sure this is what you wanna do? This is a lot of work and a lot of stress, and are you sure, and are you sure?" My dad was always, "You never wanna lose an argument, so you should absolutely be a lawyer," and it was part of the encouragement and why I actually did go to law school. So, to actually address your question, what was the reaction after the pivot? I still hear from my dad sometimes, "You're highly educated," right? So I feel like there was a little bit of initial disappointment, but now with the success that I'm having and the impact that I'm still able to have on the lives of injured people, through my role at Supio, I they're proud. They're proud. I landed where I needed to be because Zane, even when I was practicing, I was always more drawn to the human element, the relationship element. I was always great with the client development pieces and staying in touch with the clients and making them feel like they were really well taken care of. And so sort of the pivot into sales felt very natural for me. I lived the pain points that now my clients who are lawyers are living, and now I'm able to translate the value because I lived the pain.
Yeah, I could think that I would think that would be a absolutely huge advantage for you. So, okay, so when a PI firm says we tried AI and it didn't work, what actually happened?
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of war stories out there. It can be anything from we tried Chat GPT on just a basic personal account and got all sorts of hallucinations and didn't like it, or even the more not so tech comfortable people will say, um, I haven't tried it at all and I'm scared because I hear all these horror stories about hallucinations and lawyers getting cited and losing their license and all of the things. Um, More often, I would say it's being burned by a bad legal tech vendor in the past. Um, and it comes down to implementation, right? What type of support is available on day 40 versus day one? And that is sort of the barrier that I have to overcome more often with these folks is um, we're going to take care of you better than they took care of you. We're going to make sure that your staff is using this and not just using it, but using it to its full capabilities so that your case values are increasing and not slowly leaking away like they previously were. And you're increasing the capacity of your team.
So, what happens when? What does a PI attorney lose every time they personally review 400 pages of records instead of using AI?
Yeah, I lived this moment, I had the 2,000 pages of records open on my lap at 10 p.m. the night before a deposition, and I would be looking for things like treatment gaps. Did my client miss appointments? Because those are the things that insurance companies and defense attorneys love to latch onto. If your client is saying that their life is so impacted by this injury, how come they're not going to the chiropractor? How come they're missing PT, right? So I'd be looking for things like that. I'd also be looking for things like undiagnosed injuries, right? So complaints of certain symptoms that were not tied to a specific diagnosis in the record, because that is how you find cases of TBI. And that really does increase settlement value. So that's before AI. And that was just manual. That was just pages next to each other, reading this page, and then trying to collate them and make it make sense together. Now with AI, it scans those 2,000 pages, those same 2,000 pages in minutes and spits out source back insights. Supio does. I don't know about a lot of the others, but Supio will provide those source back insights. So I don't have to wonder now as an attorney, where did this information come from? Did AI hallucinate this? No, it didn't, because here's the source document that it pulled the information from. So think about it like this. You have a client who was in a motor vehicle accident. They have lumbar pain, cervical pain, knee problems. They have also complained a few times to a few different doctors, maybe about sensitivity to light or fatigue or migraines. But if it's three different providers across months of treatment, no one provider may have made the connection that this could be a TBI, right? So AI is able to bridge that gap and flag for the attorney, hey, your client has complained of photophobia, of fatigue, of migraines. That then tells the lawyer that they can follow up with their client and say, hey, we noticed these things. have you followed up with a neurologist about some of these symptoms? And it's not just increasing their case value, it's increasing client stickiness because personal injury attorneys still deeply rely on that client referral network.
Mhm. So, um, when you go through that scenario that I know hundreds of attorneys, and the first thing they're thinking, or they're thinking actually a couple of things. One is, um, the hallucination thing, but the main thing they're thinking, when I read it, I know I'm gonna find everything I need to find. And I don't know this AI is actually gonna find that little kernel that
Mhm.
I know personally, because I'm
Mhm.
better than the AI, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna find it.
Mhm.
I'm sure you get that objection, right?
We do, and we hear attorneys that they spend their time in the medical because they have found those pearls, they call them, the pearls of wisdom in the medical. So to them, in their mind, it's worth the time because I've found the gems in the past, right? But if we can somehow shift the perception to, okay, what if we could find you 10 pearls in 10 cases instead of the one pearl in the one case that it took you 10 hours to find? Then they start to see, okay, I can force multiply myself, right? Also, I say, we have trained Supio for 5 years, specifically on the nuances of plaintiff's personal injury law. So, effectively, we've trained Supio to go to law school and med school. So, the quick and dirty way of presenting it is Supio is a doctor lawyer on your staff that you don't have to pay the salary to, because that is how deep it goes.
So when I'm still I'm gonna play the part of cynic throughout our
That's
interview.
too.
So
I like it. I you wouldn't be representative of whom I'm actually speaking to every day if you weren't playing the cynic role. So,
yeah, so they're still doubtful.
yeah.
They think, okay, well, ultimately this is just somebody who's representing the company and they have their axe to grind. How do I really know that this will work? Can you actually put in a trial kind of situation for somebody to use, and how would that work?
Yeah. So there's multiple different ways of trying Supio. They all start with signing a mutual non-disclosure agreement because they are going to be exposing client data to us. In this case, it's medical records. So, in order to protect them and protect Supio and our cutting edge tech, we start with an MNDA. And then the upload process is very simple. They can connect directly to their case management system, or we can do a very simple drag and drop upload. Effectively, they're off and running, but we like to do regular checkpoints during the trial to make sure that they're actually getting the most out of it, really evaluating what they should be evaluating, and ideally, we would set up some success criteria before actually launching the trial. But it's very seamless, and it starts with the call. It starts with the call so that we can understand more about what they're hoping to accomplish with AI.
And so, um, tell me about somebody who put this into place, who surprised themselves with what happened, that was maybe skeptical but thought, okay, well, Angela, all right, I like you. I'll give it a try. I don't really believe it'll work, but tell me about a story like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it comes down to, everybody, all plaintiffs attorneys have their secret sauce, right? They have their own thing that makes them them. And so when I'm able to demonstrate on one of their client files that Supio uncovered something that maybe they weren't aware of previously, that's really the best aha moment. And it's not a gotcha moment. It's not, hey, bad attorney, you didn't catch this. It's, hey, this is hours and hours of attorney time that doesn't need to be attorney time, right? So, those are some of the big aha moments that I see. And when they really see the Supio capabilities on their own clients' cases, um, making arguments and framing things in ways that they wouldn't have otherwise thought, attacking workflows. You can actually see Supio thinking and how it's planning its tasks. It makes you better at your job and it makes your own manual processes better to the extent that you'd still like to keep them.
So is Supio actually doing legal thinking or is it doing something else? And can you make the distinction there?
Yeah, so it's firm level intelligence, case level intelligence, and document level intelligence. So in the agentic environment, you give Supio a task, right? And it considers, plans, and executes the task. It also compounds knowledge across cases, across the roles within your firm, and across your own use so that the next time you try to use it for a similar workflow, it's better than it was the last time. I don't think I'm answering your question directly. Can you please remind me of what it was? Because I get a little.
So I was just saying, is Supio actually doing the legal thinking or is it
Yeah.
something else? And
So we don't make legal conclusions, but we do integrate with Westlaw Advantage so that the medical and the case law and the statute law will live in the same place. So that's one of the important differentiators of Supio is that added layer of Westlaw verification. Nobody else in the market has an integration of its kind. So that's one of the ways that we're safeguarding and one of the ways that we're able to pull in case law and make legal conclusions is through the Westlaw partnership.
so that's a differentiator. Can you explain that a little bit more in detail?
Yeah. So previously, you'd have your AI on one screen and your case research, statutory research platform on another screen, right? And you'd be working in the medical and you'd be crafting liability arguments and you'd be trying to make injury mechanism distinctions. And then you'd have to go over to your legal research screen and make sure that the output that you were putting together was legally sound, right? Now it's all together in the same place. So if you were to draft a document, say, have Supio draft a response to a defense motion for summary judgment, right? So Supio would draft the brief based on the case knowledge and then takes an added layer of Westlaw analysis to plug in any relevant case law or suggest relevant case law and statutes to plug into that filing. Nobody
So
else has.
then,
Nobody else has. None of the other larger AI vendors that are marketing specifically to PI firms have any integration with a research partner of that size. Thomson Reuters is arguably the largest player in the legal tech space in the
yeah,
whole
they
world.
definitely are.
Yeah,
They definitely are. So,
yeah,
I'm still as an attorney, when I look at that, I think, oh crap, you're actually gonna be, developing these briefs. I just saw on news last week, some lawyer was just like blasted from the bench because he put something up there and it made up stuff. And I mean, he had his law license threatened, and he was able to come through it. But man, it was really touch and go. And his client was just absolutely livid. He looked like a monkey. So how do you answer that objection?
yeah. I always kind of start with, as lawyers, our duty to sign that the pleadings or our filings are true and veracious and grounded in law and in fact to the best of our knowledge. That hasn't changed just because AI came into the picture, right? We still have to do that, right? So that's what blows my mind with some of these hallucination cases. You still do have to read and verify. If you're putting a brief before a court, you still do have to read it. Supio would never suggest that you should completely abandon reading and independently verifying your own filings. That's a quick way to lose your license. So it's interesting because the courts keep coming out with more and more opinions. More and more circuits are starting to weigh in. And what I am noticing as the trend is that courts are not saying don't use AI. They're saying if you don't use it responsibly, we will come for your license. And certain types of communications with your AI are not privileged, can be um, can be producible and discoverable. So it's interesting. If we talked in a month, Zane, it would potentially be a different conversation on this.
So, what is Angela? So, what does blah blah blah, blah, implementation actually look like? What does the firm have to stop? Does the firm have to stop taking cases for a month to get this set up? How complicated is it to implement it?
Absolutely not. No, I please don't stop taking cases. That's the bread and butter in some of the firms. In the smaller firms I work with, it's truly chicken for dinner one night and feathers the next on a PI model because they're billing contingently, not hourly. Um, so the implementation piece, it really is customizable to the firm. We have firms that are very AI savvy that have already been prompting wizards in Chat GPT, and we don't need to focus on the prompting piece, right? We just need to focus on here's how you get cases into Supio, and here are some of the things that you can do with it. Go nuts and configure it to your goals, right? And then we have the more I don't even know how to prompt. I don't know what Chat GPT is. I'm scared of AI. And then we kind of start from square one. Okay, here's how you want to prompt. So it really does depend, but the short answer is we have a onboarding team, a customer success team that is there to provide as many trainings as are needed. As new staff come in, we will train them. As new features are released, we'll train the staff on those new features. So we really want to make sure that it's not just implementation, that it's true adoption across the firm.
So, what happens to a firm's client data? Does it ever get used to train the model?
No. So Supio is entirely SOC 2 and HIPAA compliant. We also are GDPR compliant. And your client's data stays closed within your client's case. We do not use any of your client's information to train our model. And so also your firm's data is siloed within your firm, and your personal chats with Supio are siloed within your individual membership in Supio. So if you're a paralegal and you're asking Supio to help you draft a memo for the managing partner is not going to be able to see exactly what your chats within Supio are, but they will be able to see the final output that you hand to them.
So, let's talk about discoverability because this could be a big issue. I'm sure you have this come up where somebody does the research in the platform. How do you handle the discoverability? Because they may ask questions that the other side could use against them just by the way they structure the question. So how does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, so I think it was the Hepner case in New York. Don't quote me on that because I'm not entirely sure that that's the right case name. But there was a recent case out of New York where the client, right? So the actual client of the attorney was using a large language model to ask for different legal conclusions, different pointers about their case. But so the court found that that information was not privileged. That was not covered by attorney client privilege. But when the conversation happens within a closed system, an enterprise grade AI system, that work becomes work product. When an attorney is communicating within a closed system, a purpose built system for legal, for plaintiff's personal injury, that is just like a conversation you would have with a paralegal, right? So
Mhm.
the paralegal walks into your office and says, "This is what's going on with this case." And you tell the paralegal, "This is what I think we should do next." That information is not discoverable. That's privileged. That's attorney work product. That's internal discussions. So absent more case law and statutes to the contrary, that's sort of the line right now. But I'm following it closely because I always want to make sure that um, I'm keeping my finger on the pulse of it so that I can speak intelligently to this to other attorneys, right? Yeah. But and then they always caveat it, "I'm not your lawyer. This is not legal advice," right? Have to always throw that in there.
You have to say that as a lawyer.
Yep. Yep.
So, so this is a real thing too. Staff see some AI thing coming in,
Mhm.
and they're thinking this is terrible. I hate the idea of AI. It's going to take my job.
I would say to that if it was a paralegal specifically, I would tell that paralegal, "You're worth your weight in gold." The paralegal unemployment rate is well below, the national average. I think it's 1.9%, I think, according to the last Bureau of Labor Statistics I saw. So what that means is good paralegals are worth their weight in gold, right? There are far more open jobs for paralegals than there are paralegals to fill them. So that's step 1, right? But what if you could upskill yourself as a paralegal? What if you could use AI to help you produce better outputs for your managing partner? That, I think, speaks to them being able to potentially see a growth trajectory in their career, not just replacing you, but making you better at what you already do. We have, too, like, clients in, Arizona, clients in, Illinois that say paralegals are now taking 10 more cases per paralegal comfortably because they have AI to support those previously manual workflows.
So here I want to make sure I got this right. Supio helped Tor Horman Law secure a $495 million verdict against Abbott Lab. How
Yeah.
does A- Abbott Labs, how
Yeah.
does AI play a role in a case like that?
Yeah. Well, I imagine, 43,000 plus pages of records and how much time that could take any one person or team of people to get through, right? Um, 80 plus depositions that need to be analyzed and incorporated into the record. We're talking volumes and volumes, but one thing that Tyler from Tor Horman specifically said to the Supio team, he came and spoke to us, was the paralegal bandwidth. So imagine being the person that has to read about babies dying every day, all day, right?
Mhm.
Imagine
Uh,
being the person that has to read about these horrible things. And so, one thing that Tyler called out, which I thought was important, yes, a $495 million verdict is outstanding, but saving the mental bandwidth of his staff throughout the process, so they're just pulling out the key details. They're not having to read about all these horrible injuries on the babies in gross detail every single time. So that's just um another way that we're sort of giving back to the people that are using it. It's that you can't really quantify that, but I can tell you that it does wear on a person when you're reading about horrible injuries and illnesses all day.
I do hear about vicarious trauma, yeah, which I think is a good description of what
Absolutely.
happens, particularly in the for PI attorneys.
Yeah.
So one tactic that I see constantly, when you have a medium to small size firm and then they're going against a big company with a whole team of lawyers,
Mhm.
they just try to bury them in discovery and papers. And so, does this take away, or does this assist in taking away that bludgeon that that uh, bigger defense firms use as a method to just outlast the other side?
Absolutely. Yeah, and the pockets are deeper, the tools and the tech stacks are far more robust on the defense side and on the insurance side, and they're using AI. They have AI, but um Supio responds to discovery requests. So all you do on a case is effectively drop the request for discovery into Supio, and Supio pulls the information from your client's file and can complete those discovery requests. Thinking about responding to interrogatories that are non-standard interrogatories can take at least an hour, but Supio can answer them in a minute or less. It's pretty fascinating. So multiply that throughout the day across the staff, and we're talking about days, if not weeks, that come back over the year. And what's that worth to you in time?
Hmm. So a firm turned a $25,000 case into a $250,000 settlement. Walk me through
Mhm.
how that's possible.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to that undiagnosed injuries piece that Supio flags for our customers. So that was the TBI thing. So there was they had a client who was complaining of some additional neurological symptoms that were not tied to a specific neurological diagnosis. That firm was able to go back to their client and say, "Please go to the neurologist. We're noticing some of these things." And that turned the settlement value from a $25,000 standard kind of soft tissue case into a $250,000 TBI case. And I always hedge that with, yes, it's good that a stronger result was obtained, but hedging that knowing that somebody's life is probably a little bit more deeply impacted from a TBI than a soft tissue injury. But a great result nonetheless, and a great proof point.
So, how is so I'm going personal now. So how has the opportunity of working in this new field, how has that impacted your life?
I can say that for the first time in a long time, I truly love my job. I I love getting to talk shop with the people, with my people. Um I get them and they get me, and I love being able to quickly build a rapport with my prospects and my clients and really just dig into what's ailing them and what's ailing their firm, and be their trusted advisor. My life is infinitely better just since joining Supio, just because if you can say that you love your job, you truly don't feel like you're working.
Yep.
And I'm happy to log in on weekends and in evenings just because I want to. Because I want to check in, not because anybody's telling me I have to. So I think that that's a true test, or a true testament to the culture here. Um, and it's really been great. I get to upskill myself on AI. If you would have asked me a year ago where I was at with AI, I think again the conversation would have been very different. But yeah, thanks for asking. I do. I'm very, very happy. It's improved my life because I get to improve the lives of attorneys and their clients.
So, um, I have like 100 more questions that aren't even on my list, but we're
Okay.
running out of time. So, are just two more questions. Where do you see Supio at in like a year from now, 5 years from now?
You know, there's the roadmap, right? And then there's what we do to pivot in real time in response to what we're hearing from our customers. But I I think in 5 years, it's complete firm level operating. It's even being able to take additional actions perhaps on a firm's behalf, based on certain triggers that come in. I think we're going to see more and more aspects of a personal injury practice become automated through Supio. Um, it's It's hard to say, because we do pivot in real time based on what the clients are saying. And so our product team is incredibly responsive on, hey, this piece is not working, or we'd like to see more clarity here, or we'd like to see better tagging and better distinction here. We pivot in real time and we deliver that. So sky's the limit, but I'm really excited.
Okay, so tell me now, how do people get in touch with you, or with Supio, so that they can get help? So, what areas do you cover for Supio?
I cover all of New England and upstate New York for Supio. So that's from right now, it's from one attorney all the way through a million attorneys if you have them. I'd that'd be an intimidating firm to go after, but I'm up for the challenge. And you can reach me at angela.ventro@supio.com, and you can check us out at supio.com. We're also very active on LinkedIn, constantly posting webinars and articles and all kinds of good information that you can find there.
Okay, Angela, thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it
Hang
too,
with me for a
Zane.
second.
Thank you so much.